I started to see a glimpse of hope. It was like I was holding my daughter's hand. We were coming back. I just go to the park all day. I had no money left, and we were coming back to the apartment. The guy was changing the locks in the apartment, and my daughter looks up at me, and she sees I'm tearing up, and I'm like, man, just please let me stay one more night. And this guy was an angel, man. He was like, listen, dude, I've been trying to change your locks. He's like, I have to change them, and I'm like, just give me one more night.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where our vision is to connect men in pursuit of their potential. Tap in as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. And before we hop into the episode, I want to make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast so you can check out a new episode each and every single week. And be sure to check out The Noble Knights, where you can take the conversation deeper and connect with a community of like-minded men, elevating their capacity for life. Check out the link in the show notes for more. But without further ado, I want to get to our guest today, top crypto, spiritual, and mindset coach, Coach JV, on the podcast joining us. Coach JV, man, thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, man. I'm such an honor to be here and to speak to great men like you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My pleasure. And before we jump in, I love giving an opportunity for the guests to talk directly to the audience, introducing themselves in their own words. I think we can get a lot of info in terms of how someone introduces themselves. So I'm going to step aside, Coach JV. I'll let you do the intro for yourself. Talk about some of the ropes, the pulleys, and the gears, and everything behind the scenes that led us to who we see here on the call, brother.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And I think it's important just to start with brutal authenticity of who I am and, start there and then we'll back into who I become. And I think that's an important thing. So hopefully people can see themselves in my story. I think that's the important thing around storytelling or men coming together. On December 18th, 2006, about 17 years ago, I attempted suicide due to a massive opiate addiction, lack of self-worth, all these different things. And I woke up to a book called The Secret, which I have over my right shoulder here. And just a simple book of thoughts become things. And from that point on, I really, at that point, was at the bottom of the barrel in my life. I'd lost a business. I couldn't take care of my 3-year-old daughter. And for some reason, I believed in this book, The Secret. And I really didn't have a lot of exposure to spirituality or anything like that. I wasn't raised in that realm, but I just started to change my state of mind. Like I just started to believe that I can manifest. And that's all I really had at that point. And I started doing I am affirmations. I'm powerful. I am strong. I am worthy. And I started to see small little incremental changes within my life. Well, the first thing I did is I operated in forgiveness. And from there, I ended up getting a job, ironically, as a banker. And I remember when I went to this job, did the interview. I was completely broke, and I spent 50 cents to get my suit at Goodwill, like a little thrift store. And I went there, and I'll never forget it. I have severe dyslexia, so it doesn't make sense for me to be a banker, but I'll get to that point. And so I do this interview with this lady, and I'd been practicing my energy and my vibration and affirmations and all this stuff. And I leave the interview, and I told her, I said, ma'am, I said, if you hire me, this was 17 years ago, I said, I will be the best employee you've ever hired. I just need a job. So I left, and she gave me a call 15 minutes later, and she said, it was something that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And she said, we're going to hire you. And I said, as what? And she said, a banker. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, cool. And so she brought me on as a banker, and I said, why did you hire me? She said, I liked your energy. And it's just something that stuck in my head. I was like, man, what is that? And so, I went into the banking role, and within 2 years, 7 months, 28 days, I was one of the fastest in history to get to that executive position. I just started to really focus on thoughts, like really understanding who I am as a person. But it was like a wave of energy, up and down and up and down. I was still trying to discover who I am. Well, I got deep into the banking system, and in 2012 was a big year for me. It was 12 years ago where I got promoted to VP, became an executive banker, and got invited to CBA executive banking school. And it was the best and worst thing that ever could have happened to me in banking, because there I am in the banking sector, and I got to see the banking system for what it really was. I was like, holy cow, man, we're supposed to be providing financial education, financial literacy, but all we were was burying our people in debt. I mean, as people were coming in, I was seeing people still struggling from the 2006 to 2008 crisis. And I started to feel a different way. I just didn't feel good about what I was doing. And so I was making a ton of money as an executive, quarter of a million a year, getting these huge bonuses, and I was moving up the ranks. So I started to get addicted to that feeling again. I was like, oh man, the cars and the 535i BMW. And I just had this feeling, man, my last year in banking school. And I was like, I have to leave. And imagine Cinderella's
Mm.
story, suicide to executive banker, the big house, the cars, and all that stuff. And I remember calling my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm leaving the bank. And she's like, What? And she goes, You got to tell your dad. I said, It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my dad thinks. It doesn't matter. I have to do this for myself and my family. And I walked out of the bank and I thought that I was going to be a famous podcast host and book author. And, I was going to build this program. And unbeknownst to me, I got put through the ringer. I asked God to be a warrior in a modern day society. And he sure took me through that. So we launched our first program in 2018. I built it for 6 months and we launched January 2018. Zero people signed up. At that point, I had some money in my bank account, my 401k, all that stuff. And then that quickly started to dissipate really fast. And so, going into, I'll speed up the story a little bit. Going into 2018, went through a big coaching program. And then we ended up finally starting to make it. We built a six-figure company. And then all of a sudden, right when it all starts to come together, the pandemic hits and they shut my
Boom.
business down. And I'm like, I had a physical location and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And I ended up going through a divorce, broke on my parents' couch, and something triggered in me there. I was like, you know what? I got to go back to live with my parents to see how I grew up, to hear the conversations, to see the wealth paradigm. What are the conversations about future and foundation? And how does my dad treat my mom, and how does my mom treat my dad? And I heard conversations around money, and I'm like, this is why I'm back on my parents' couch, because if I don't draw a line in the sand, if I don't rewire the foundation, I'll end up in the exact same situation. Because I had no problem earning money. So I made it my mission from 2020 to today to really understand financial literacy at a very, very, very deep level and understand what is money? What is money? How does it run through the system? And how can I stop trading time for money and use money to free up my time so I can actually be with my kids and be a good father and be a good steward to society and plant good seeds? And so from 2020, broke on my parents' couch. I started. I had been posting for a long time. My daughter got us on TikTok, and we went completely viral. And from there, we went from broke on the parents' couch to we now have three seven-figure ecosystems, 27 team members worldwide, 8,000 warriors, and we just keep growing ecosystems. And the reason why I wanted to tell the authenticity part of it first, so someone could see themselves in my story, right? My message in that is I'm a man who just didn't stop. I'm someone who identified that there's an issue within my genetic timeline. I call it my genetic
Yeah.
timeline that needed to be rewired, and I became more committed to the pain of change and staying the same. I rewired the foundation, and I got my family in a completely different situation. So here we are on the podcast now with you, man.
That's amazing. And I'm gonna pull out the last thing you said with the first thing you said. The pain of change versus the pain of staying the same. And if you don't mind, when you started with the attempted suicide, um, that has to be a painful place to be in. And waking up
Mm,
in the trajectory that you went on afterwards, what was I know the book The Secret had a huge had a huge impact. What was the
mm.
fuel though that kept you going from when you woke up to becoming VP in those 2.5 years in that trajectory? What was that fuel that kept you going day in and day out?
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try to tell this without crying, man. The fuel was my 3-year-old daughter, man. At that point, I was not a good father, man. I'm just being honest with you. I was not a good father. I was not a good person. I was not a good human. If anybody's experienced anybody with an opiate addiction, I was a clean cut dude, man. And then I ended up getting an injury, ended up taking an opiate. I had a bad insecurity. It made me feel good about myself, and then turned in. It's a pretty typical story with an opiate. It starts with one pill, and then well, the first 3 years of my daughter's life, it was just I was not a good human being, man. I was not a good father. I mean, there was points where I was dragging her to crack houses to buy opiates. That's how bad it got. It got really, really bad. And when I woke up and I got a second chance to the book called The Secret, I remember we were getting evicted from our apartment, and I started to see a glimpse of hope. It was like I was holding my daughter's hand. We're coming back. I just go to the park all day. I had no money left, and we were coming back to the apartment. The guy was changing the locks in the apartment, and my daughter looks up at me, and she sees I'm tearing up, and I'm like, man, just please let me stay one more night. And this guy was an angel, man. He was like, listen, dude, I've been trying to change your locks. He's like, I have to change them, and I'm like, just give me one more night. And my daughter was looking at me, and she's like, it's gonna be okay, Dad. And I'm like, fuck. And so I knew right then, I'm like, I had to grow up, man. I had to grow up because I decided to bring someone into this life, and that God gave me another chance. And she was my driver, man. It was my 3-year-old daughter, her beautiful blue eyes, and now she's 20. She's going to be 20 in May. She's thriving now, and that was a driver for me, man. Every day I'd wake up, I'd look at her, and then I'd go to work, and I would just put in tons of work because I understood that I got a second chance, man. I did. God spared me a second chance, and I don't know why, but I'm like, I'm not going to take advantage of that. But my daughter was a big driver. Then it also was the realization that through the secret that I am creating all of this. Like, I believe in God, there's a creator, but I'm saying that my thoughts, my actions, and my behaviors are creating this. And so when I started to realize that every seed I planted was starting to create new fruit, and I was like, wow. And there was another thing I realized too. I was like, well, if I want to continue on into a new path, um, I had to forgive myself. So the catalyst was forgiving myself, and then using my 3-year-old daughter as that catalyst to keep on pushing, to keep on going. And then from there, I started to find myself. I started to find myself through the process. So my daughter, if it wasn't for my daughter, I don't think I'd be here, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah. Man, Coach, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And I just want to really say really quick, man, I'm really glad you're still here, bro. And it means a lot. And the work that
Thank you.
you've put in, it shows. And my mom was a psychiatric nurse for 35 plus years, and I knew about the opioid pandemic or epidemic before it even hit headlines. And my mom would come home from work and she would tell me, like,
Mhm.
these are construction workers, these are lawyers, these are good workers who got injured at work. The
Mhm.
doctor might have prescribed them a little bit too much, and they got dependent on it. And when the script stopped, they had to go other routes to keep getting this medicine that they never asked for in the first place. But now the dependency and that addiction creeps in after being prescribed it. So it's extremely dangerous, and how fast that can happen to someone, and it's not even something that they
Mhm.
looked for. So my mom has expressed that to me firsthand. If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Thayton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals. Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. As you're coming up in the ranks and you become the VP, you mentioned realize banking for what it was and deciding you had to go. Now this was a different realization of something that wasn't for you.
Mhm.
For a lot of guys on the outside looking in, they think to themselves, man, if I had a VP position making $250,000 a year,
Mhm.
I would never want to walk away, right? Um, what
Mhm.
was it that you saw, the realization that you had, and what gave you the confidence to walk away into the unknown?
Yeah, I think it's important too for my own personal story, is having an ethical foundation. It was like when I saw the system for what it was, I read a book called The Creature of Jekyll Island when I was in banking school, which probably was the worst thing I could have done. And I understood who the Federal Reserve is, right? And so the Federal Reserve is just a bank of bankers. Basically, when I understood that, I had this moment where I was sitting there in school, and I'm like, man, like, I am not providing financial literacy, and we are not helping our customers. And so it was like this feeling in my body. It was like, I can keep making this money, or I can follow my intuition and my ethics and morals and try to leave and create something that will help humanity. And it was just this internal thing. And mind you, I'm telling you, like, it was everybody told me not to do it. Everybody was like, what are you doing? I got made fun of when I left because I did. I lost everything. I lost everything, my friend. I lost everything twice in the process. And all the naysayers came out and they're like, listen, we told you had a secure job, you had the 401k, you had all this stuff. I said, but I'm following a feeling, I'm following a vibration, I'm following an internal tug by God that I have to do what is right. And so through that process, it was able to pull me, and that became the driving force for me. It was like that feeling that I would wake up every day and be like, God, please guide me through this. I trust that you're going to feed the birds tomorrow. I know you will feed me and my family. And he did. He always fed us. We always worked out, whether I had to drive Uber, whatever I had to do. And within the physical world, it looked like everything was falling apart. But inside, I was coming together, if that makes any sense. Like the physical world
Mhm.
looked like it was falling apart. The old me, the physical world was beautiful. We had a house next to a golf course, 15,000 square foot yard, 535 BMW SUV. I had the suit on. I was all decked out. But inside, I was destroyed.
Mm.
So the physical looked great, but now the internal was starting to feel good. And I was starting to feel good about myself. And I started to go through spiritual awakening. And then eventually the outside started to match the inside. I started to develop new relationships and I found new partnerships. And I'm like, wow, okay, there's something to this thing because I did it from suicide to executive, from the internal vibration of thoughts. But I was in the wrong vehicle once again. It was like I just kept getting, it's like, I think that's life. I really do. I think that often we're trying to get to who we truly are, but sometimes we get in the wrong vehicle.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself, do you want to keep driving the broken vehicle or do you want to get out for a moment, take the hard road and figure out what vehicle that you have to get into. But that's society. What society says is like, you have to go to school, get a job, get a 401k, safety, safety. But I'm telling you right now, it's like safe. What is safety right now? I mean, look at our economy. And so it's just, I guess all I could tell you is that I followed this intuitive tug, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did because now I always call myself the richest man in the world. And I'm not talking money. I'm talking. I have a great relationship with my daughter. The same girl I talked about. She's almost 20. I'm off at 2 o'clock every single day with my kids. I no longer trade time for money. I have ecosystems that pay me 24 hours a day. And I'm like, it's because I never gave up. It's because I followed that intuitive tug. And so my message to men out there is like, it's not going to be easy, man. Make the path to the light difficult so the weak and weary will not follow. But it's not easy to sit in a job, trading time for money, earning a bunch of income and doing something you're not in alignment with. So it's this internal tug. You have to ask yourself the question, like, what do you want to be known for? Like, what do you want your kids to see? So my daughter, they did an interview with her recently, and my daughter's like, she got to see me go from drug addict to executive to leaving, losing everything to parents' couch to now. She said, my dad, she said, Dad, you're the richest, poorest man I've ever met in my life. And it's the biggest compliment. She's like, you're just happy.
Yeah.
You're happy now. She's like, it's so awesome. And that's the biggest compliment, right? It's like she's like, "You're happy now, Dad. You're enjoyable to be around." I always say my biggest flex is my 19-year-old daughter wants to hang out with me all the time.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge, and I think a lot of dads out there who have teens, and teen daughters probably are like, "Man, what's the secret?" So don't worry, we'll get your info at the end of the episode so the dads can reach out to you for the secret. But man, that's so huge because we've said it before on the podcast. If you ask God for patience, He's going to put you in a position to be patient. And a lot of times the guys are listening
Man,
and they're watching and they're like, man, I just want to be strong. I want strength, that hero's journey. Right. And
mm,
the reality is when you ask for that, you are asking for God to put you in a position where strength will be required. You're asking for God to put you in a
yes,
position where patience, strength,
yeah,
resilience, and fortitude will be required. And though the harvest might be plenty, the workers are few. And it's those who will pick up the tools and for the noble
mm,
knights we say pick up your sword and fight for the life that you deserve. Your comfort is killing your courage,
awesome.
and we need to lean into that discomfort in order to push forward.
Wow,
um Man, I'm sorry, I was just jiving off of everything you said, and it struck me, and I wanted to feed off of that, brother, because it is going to be difficult. But for so many of us, I think a lot
mm,
of men who live life in quiet desperation are looking into the mirrors because they haven't challenged themselves, and they've sat in that comfortable prescribed life that you mentioned before. The
mm,
schooling, the good job, the wife, the kids, and
mm,
they're not tracing their purpose. How did
yeah.
you unpack that purpose that led you to to become the warrior that you are today?
Yeah, I had to ask myself. I think it's important to ask yourself why. What are you afraid of? And for me, I had to heal the little boy inside of myself, man. That's been the journey the last 4 years, is really healing the little broken. I went way back. I went way back to when I was a little kid, and some stuff happened to me as a child that shouldn't happen to a child, and I had to unpack that first. I was like, okay, so what were those the memories? First of all, I was like, okay, the memories of that, it gave me lack of self-worth, which I'm not blaming the world for anything, but it caused me to go to outside sources, things like that. I had to ask myself, like, who really am I? Like, who am I? Like, not what the world created me to be, but who does God want me to be? And I spent a lot of time, Jesus says, take no thought, right? So I spent a lot of time sitting in meditation, whatever you want to call it, prayer, meditation. I would sit with God and just silence. And I'd be like, this is how I did it. I unpacked it. I would say, okay, God, these are the things that I struggled with as a child. I'm asking for forgiveness of the other person. I'm asking for forgiveness of myself. I want to release that into the past. And once I release that in the past, now I have a new present moment. From that present moment, I want to plant new seeds. But in order to plant new seeds, we have to get present. And so God says, or Jesus said to take no thought. So I'd take no thought. And then I started hearing the voice in my head, which I think it's God. I don't know. I'm trying to still figure all this out. I'm like, I would say, God, please protect me, guide me. And what I started to do is to follow this intuitive tug that started in 2012. It was this intuitive tug where it's like this next step that I'm taking. It's not even faith anymore. It's knowing that because of the seed that I planted and my reticular activating system guiding me, that the next step that I'm taking is the next thing that I need to experience based on the seeds that I planted. So I have full trust and faith in God. And from that, some of the experiences may be really brutal, really brutal. And that's, like you said,
Hmm.
that's what's being presented to me and the things that I need to transmute and learn to get to that next level. And so unpacking it was unpacking my subconscious mind, because I had to ask myself, well, why did I need opiates? Why did I need the 535i BMW? Why did I need the house? I didn't need any of that. I wanted it for edification. And there's nothing wrong with having that. I have a bunch of nice stuff now, but it's a very different feeling. The nice stuff is to enjoy the creation that somebody else created versus edification. And so for me, I had to unpack deep rooted subconscious mind programming trauma, take responsibility for it, provide forgiveness to myself, and then start to build a new wiring system or new. Like it's your spine, your nervous system. It's the ethereal body. It's like the foundation. So I rewired the foundation. Then I had to start to build the building blocks on top of that, and then from there, instead of trying to go after things, you start to attract things, magnetize things. So now I'm me, my authentic self, and I'm
Hmm.
magnetizing things to me versus chasing things. And that's how I became wealthy. And a lot of people don't talk about this. That's how I became wealthy, is because I started magnetizing to myself, not trying to find something, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I heard it was 19 Keys or someone said once, our whole lives we were taught how to chase money instead of create value. And by
Mm,
creating value, the money chases us,
yes.
right? And that's the way to
Yes.
approach things. I want to touch on mindset because I hear a lot of what you're saying in terms of rewiring the way we think. And specifically to anyone listening who has a scarcity mindset or they are stuck where they are and they can't see themselves as wealthy yet. They can't see themselves as anywhere else than
Mm,
the position that they're currently in. What does it look like kind of rewiring one's mindset,
mhm.
and what are the benefits and maybe the fruits of the labor that come on the other side of rewiring your mindset?
Yeah, great question, man. So I always tell people everybody's a manifestation expert. So if you're ever around anybody and they say, I'm worried about my 401k, I'm worried about my kids, I'm worried about this, my kid is going out there. I'm like, they're like, oh, manifestation mumbo jumbo. I'm like, wait a minute, you just said to me that you're worried about your 401k. So you're worried about something that is in the future. And I said, let's pause for just a moment. So what you're doing is you're telling your reticular activating system, your RAS, it's basically God's GPS. Your RAS is very servant. You're telling your RAS that I'm worried about my 401k. So it has to give you confirmation and conviction that that is true. So we'll continue to align with jobs, people, places, things that will fulfill that prophecy that you have within your mind. And so I tell people, if you want a new reality, you have to start to create a new conversation. Now, that's just the beginning of the secret. The key to this though is to so there's a beautiful picture. It's one of the most expensive pictures in the world. It's Jesus called I'm going to say it incorrectly. Sandra Mooney or whatever. He's holding a world in his hand. And he's pointing up, and he's in the all in the void. He's in the darkness, right? And there's in between there's his heart, right? And he says, "Be in the world, but not of the world," right? So what he means by that is coming through your heart, connecting, taking no thought, and connecting to the feeling and vibration as if it's already created. And the struggle we have with this is because you say, "Oh, that's mumbo jumbo." Well, let me ask you a question. I'll reverse it in a negative sense and I'll bring it back to
Hmm.
positive. So when I'm having a coaching conversation with somebody, I'm like, "Okay, so have you ever imagined your spouse, partner, loved one cheating on you?" And everybody's like, "Oh, and you get that feeling
Hmm.
like you can actually well up the feeling in your body if you think about that, or think about something happened about your child that hasn't happened, and you start getting this anger or sadness. If you can do that in the positive sense, you're connecting to the feeling and frequency as if it already exists because your brain is in darkness. It has no idea what's happening. It's only perceiving this. So, for example, everybody thinks it's an outside in effect. It's an inside out effect. This is biblical. I mean, I can break it down in the Bible and all the numbers and stuff like that, but it's a biblical thing. Jacob said, "I saw God face to face." I called it pineal. They say to go into your closet and pray. Why do you go into your closet and pray? Because when it's dark, your pineal gland activates. Whatever
Boom.
that pineal gland activates in darkness is your dominant thought. Whatever your dominant thought is, when you open your eye, you have the faith of a mustard seed. And then you can manifest. And so I always tell people, I'm like, let's talk about the negative context. Let's reverse engineer that. Now, we live in a polarizing world of, when you say to Jesus, who's the prince of the earth, he said the devil, right? Okay, so the devil's a prince of the earth, we know that. So there's a lot of negativity. So your how you run your day is extremely important,
Yeah.
extremely important. So for example, right when you wake up, you're in theta for the first 15 minutes. Your brain is like a child under 8. It's pure subconscious. But what do? We pick up our phone, we go on Instagram. We should be going right into positive manifestation. 15 minutes before bed, your brain is in theta once again. So as you're going into that sleep awareness or sleep consciousness to unconsciousness, you should imagine your life as if you want it. So what I do is I practice connecting to the field. So I was already a multimillionaire when I was broke on my parents' couch. Like that already happened. We're almost
Hmm.
there. We're very close to that, right? I was already, and people are like, that was 3 years ago. But to me, it was in the reality. I'm sitting on my parents' couch where I grew up, and I'm sitting there, and my pops is looking at me, probably like, "Dude, like you left a corporate job. You're a clown. Like you look like a dope. You look like a hippie. Like what are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm sitting there meditating. I'm connecting to the feeling. I'm walking into the house that doesn't exist yet within the current reality. I'm feeling the carpet on my feet. I'm playing with my son. I'm, saying hi to my daughter as she comes home. I'm literally seeing her 3 years in the future. I literally live in that house now. And people think that's crazy, but is it not true that when you meet somebody who's negative, everything happens to them? Like
Hmm.
everything happens to them because they're manifestation machines because all they think about is negativity. So it's not an outside in effect. Everybody's like, "Oh, they're waiting for Trump to come back," right? When Trump isn't going to wake up in the morning to exercise, Trump is not going to change their budget. Trump is not going to raise your family. He's not going to raise your kids. He might change our taxes and run. I personally I would rather run under Trump for business wise, and things like that, and leadership wise. But my point is, Biden didn't stop me from building 7-figure ecosystems. I manifested this. I created this, right? So it goes back into the created I am versus the great I am. That's what God said to Moses when he was at the burning bush or the acacia bush. We are created I ams. We go to school. Like I'm pulling my son out of the public schooling system. It's wild, man. It's like they have two
Hmm.
15-minute breaks. My son's sitting there. He's an energy ball and he has to sit there for 8 hours and he has to do homework. And I'm like, they're trained to be a worker. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm getting my
Yeah.
son into an ecosystem where he believes in himself and he manifests. So hopefully that makes sense. It's about connecting to the feeling and frequency as if it already exists. So you get to be a kid again. You get to use your imagination.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. And I've listen, I think a lot of guys listening, they are of the entrepreneurial mind, they are of the manifestation mind, but we all have those people who we interact with on a given in a given day,
Mhm.
and they will just have the negative angle to any thought, any
Mm.
projection, or any success that you share. And I always tell them, like, listen, if you want to fight for your limiting beliefs, you can have them, because that's what a lot of
Oh,
people
wow,
do.
that's powerful.
They're they're fighting so hard to stay where they are, and
Mm,
we know those who seem like as though they have a dark cloud following them. Something bad
mhm,
is happening to them all the time, and I don't.
mhm.
I love everybody, but I separate myself from those people because
Sure.
I don't want it to rub off on me. But I have the
Yeah.
conversations with my friends, the text messages, and even in our Noble Knights groups, we start our calls with sharing our wins because winning is a habit. Winning is
That's
contagious,
all.
and just like that misery can bring someone down, that
Mhm.
positivity can bring somebody up. And I'd rather be on the up and up than on
Mhm.
the downward spiral because it could be that fragile. Um,
Yes.
for your energy, protecting it at all times, even when you were applying for the bank, they said, "Hey, we liked your energy." Sometimes just being a value add in the room is enough to get you
Mm.
hired, which which is an amazing thing to see.
Yep.
Um, I want to talk
Yeah.
about the Warrior Academy, and how that rolled out because we're
Mm.
talking now not just with the mindset, but really the ecosystem in which we find ourselves. Because
Mm.
like you, I already know I'm checking my bank account for that $1 million deposit to come through because I know it's on the way. It's just these wires these days just take forever
Mm.
to land to land in
Yes.
the account, but I already know that's on the way. My wife and I already know we have the house on the
Yeah.
lake, and um, I, I
Yes.
I have I even feel it in my heart right now.
Yes.
To your point of the excitement of my son and my daughter surfing off the back of our boat on Lake Norman here in
Yes.
Charlotte, but you can't do
Yes.
it alone. And I always say, right, for any guy out there, don't be a lone
Right.
wolf because you're going to, if you want to go
Mm.
fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with a tribe. And if you also want help, and if you honestly want to go faster, you also need a tribe
Yeah.
as well. So when it comes to the Warrior Academy, how did that come about, and what kind of success have you been able to see firsthand with the camaraderie that you've built?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you brought up the word tribe, and it's so important. Like you said, yeah, everybody says it's lonely at the top. I don't think you're doing it correctly if it's lonely at the top. It's not lonely at the top. It's not at all.
Yeah.
I have more loving human beings around me than I've ever had in my life. It was lonely at the top in banking, which is a very different feeling. But yeah, so the 3T Warrior Academy came about from, it was a program that I tried to launch in 2018. It was fitness, mindset, all those things, because it wasn't ready because I wasn't ready, right? So I launched it in 2018 for the first time. Nobody signed up. I launched it second time in 2018. We launched it 4 times, and the 5th time, finally, it came together, and ironically, when it came together is when I was being my true authentic self. So we created the 3T Warrior Academy. It was, we do fitness, mindset, subconscious mind programming, goal setting, our 120 day challenge. We teach people financial literacy, how to rewire the brain. We teach them how to invest. We teach them how to grow their wealth and protect their wealth. So it's a inside out approach. So you're rewiring the nervous system. You're understanding how money actually works, understanding that you are the currency. You said it, like your value that you provide should be the currency that you're receiving, right? And so we went through that process, and it's been wonderful, man. We started with about 100 people in 2020, and then we've coached over 8,000 people since 2020. I think we have 27 team members, 8 different countries now, and it's expanded, which is really cool. So what's happened is we've created. I love the word tribe. That's what we call it, tribal leadership. Yeah, I'm the CEO of these
Mhm.
companies, but I'm just a part of the ecosystem. That's all I am. I have a leadership role within the ecosystem, and every single role, all the way down to the janitor of buildings, is equally important, right? So what we've done is we created this group of like-minded individuals from all different walks of life: Catholic, Jehovah Witness, Church of Latter-day Saints, Buddha, all these great people that are we're here to not repeat consciousness. We're here to draw a line in the sand and expand consciousness. So we are not about, like you said, we there's no negativity in our community. It doesn't matter. You can say what you mean, you just can't say it mean. If you're negative within our
Mm.
community, there's a difference between complaining and venting. If you're complaining, you're out. If you're venting, we can come up with a solution to that. And so it's been cool. So we've actually, through that, we actually own 9 companies, and 32 companies have been created from the ecosystem. So my vision, once again, I put a flag up in my our gym, and there was nobody signed up, and I put a flag and I put freedom for all. And I'm telling you, my friend, when I said that, I felt it in my soul. I was like, God, whatever I create, I want freedom for every single person in my ecosystem. That's all I'm asking for. Whatever you want that to represent, financial, spiritual, mental, physical. And then that embodiment came into fruition. And like, we have an insurance company, it's one of the fastest growing insurance companies now. And it's like, it's not that I went out and hustled for it. It's that I connected to it, I was disciplined. I was consistent because, a discipline is you're a disciple of something. I was a disciple of freedom. So I became a disciple
Mhm.
of freedom. And through that, God allowed me to connect with the right human beings. And then, yeah, it's wonderful, man. So we were expanding in the academy. It's a wild thing, man. It's a wild thing because I remember sitting in that gym next door. Well, I'm in our corporate office right now. I was in the gym next door, and I knew this. I knew that we'd be doing this right now. Not like this context of the podcast and all that stuff. And I just hope that if a man's sitting there right now and you feel down, I want you to put your chin up, chest proud, and I want you to start to imagine your life as you want it. But faith without
Yeah.
works is foolish. Then you got to get to work. And I put in a ton of grind for this, right? But what I'm here to tell people is on the other side of that is freedom, man. When you become your true great I am, your authentic true self, unconditional love with gratitude, it's unbelievable, man. And it's not lonely at the top. I'm sure you're experiencing that as well. Like I have the greatest
Yeah.
human beings around me, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, my world just gets bigger and bigger. And I think when people say it's lonely at the top, I think the people that say that
Mm.
haven't made it to the top yet because there is a middle ground that is lonely. And that's
Ooh.
just a transition ground,
Yeah.
right? Like you think you're at the top because the people who you used to hang with don't have the same mindset
Mm.
anymore. And you're gravitating away from them. And you
Yeah.
find yourself in limbo of you don't fit in with the old crowd. You haven't built yourself up enough for the next
Mm.
crowd. So you're in this middle ground. But as I've been elevating myself more and more, now I have a friend and they're like, "Oh, you need to meet so and so." And then I meet so and so who needs to introduce me to so and so. And then
Mm.
you meet all these amazing people who are just pouring into the world. And you mentioned value. They're giving their value to the world. I
Mhm.
know that ecosystem could be so beneficial when it comes to the growth of somebody because you truly have multiple minds attacking one problem, and
Mm.
especially if someone has been through that experience before, if it's searching for leads in their business or dealing with an exit in their business, someone else who's experiencing that can share that knowledge right away. So I imagine that growth has been amazing to see, and even the companies that have
Mhm.
come out of that community. And I want to touch on something that you mentioned in terms of just financial freedom, and for the men listening here,
Mhm. Mhm.
for the importance of stepping up, especially in today's world with everything happening. Whether you turn on the news, you go on social media, you see everything that the world is throwing at you. How can we as men
Yeah.
step up into our divine masculinity, into our realm, our home, our community as leaders, and step up to provide?
Yeah, yeah. What I was talking about is in regards to men. When I'm coaching men, I say, there's, and this is not judgment because we're aiming for perfection, knowing it's not possible. There's only one person that walked this earth that was perfect, was Jesus. Like, so we're all aiming for perfection. It's not possible. It's all about principles and really looking and taking a deep look in the mirror and saying, what am I truly doing to move the needle forward for my family? Right. So I always tell men, I'm like, if I look at your debit card transactions, your social media feed, and your web browser, and I can tell you where you're going to be at in 5 years. Like your
Mm,
social media feed, your debit card transactions, and your social media in your browser, right? It's going to tell me where your mindset's at. So we have to clean up our mind, develop principles. We have to start to financially educate ourselves and understand. I'm going to tell you a positive thing about this is the greatest time in human history to build wealth. It is truly the greatest time. And we have a massive transition in a financial system right now. I'm heavily into cryptocurrency, but I always tell people very speculative asset, extremely speculative. You got to be very, very careful. You got to know the game so you don't get played. But I think it's important for men right now, this going to school, getting a job and getting a 401k and letting some HR manager manage your wealth. That's not divine masculine. You should know where your money is going. Every time money hits your paycheck hits your bank account, you should know where that money's going, right? Is it going towards food for your family? Is it going for education for your family? Is it going towards investments? And you should always pay yourself first. So I'm really standing on a mountaintop trying to preach to men, not preach. Lock arm in arm with men so we can climb up this mountain together to understand that, our dads, they went through some crazy shit, man. They went through our grandparents went through the Great Depression. They were hard as nails to our fathers, and our fathers were kind of disconnected emotionally, right? And so they just went to work. That's all they did. And they did the best they
mhm.
could. The American dream, and I hate to say this, is dead in regards to a financial sense, but it's alive in the fact that we can bring up a new breed of men who are divine masculine, and really stepping into that ownership of being a divine masculine man and providing that safety and security for the divine feminine. I'm not saying, feminist stuff like that. What I'm saying is being a divine man so that your woman can be divine feminine so we can raise our kids properly, so we can be there for our children. That's the pandemic, is men not raising their kids, man.
Yeah. Oh man, um, that's a whole nother
Mhm.
podcast on its own, brother. But man, I
Yeah.
felt everything you said because of the importance of. I'll put it this way: I can't speak for everyone. For me, it fills me up being able to provide for my wife. It fills me up when
Abs
my wife comes to me and she says she feels safe with us. It fills
Yes.
me up that through the pregnancy, my wife has been working part time instead of full time, and my
Yes.
income can support the bills. That fills me up. That makes me feel good. And it allows my wife to take a nap in the middle of the day on a Tuesday while she's
Mhm.
she's pregnant growing our child.
Yes.
I can
Yes.
pour into her and let her rest. I can let her nap while I can go put in the work to help provide for us. That fills me up and that gives
Mhm.
me joy and fulfillment. And I've enjoyed that setup that we've had, and my wife has been thankful for it as well because I've been able to see her be nurturing. I've been able to see her get
Mhm.
comfortable in the beauty that is her pregnancy and seeing that firsthand. Um, Coach JV, I have one more question, but before I
Yeah.
do that, I want to make sure that the audience has a way to connect with you, follow up with
Sure.
you, get in touch with your 3T Warrior Academy as well. If the Noble Knights is not their vibe, I'm an abundance mindset kind of guy. So if
Yes.
what I say
Yes.
vibes with you, check us out. If what Coach JV said vibes with you, check him out because the goal is for
Mhm.
you men to get this community, this service. So, Coach JV, please share where folks can connect with you and learn more.
Yeah, thank you. So if you just go to Google, type in Coach JV like junior varsity, Coach JV like junior varsity, all my socials will come up. And then it's 3T as in Tom Warrior Academy.com is our website. And yeah, you can see our whole ecosystem there. So thank you for that.
No, absolutely. I love it. And my last question is usually the heavier one. It's if what is something that you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Hmm. What happened to me as a child, man? Like what happened to me as a child shaped the way that I view the world in the beginning from a negative sense and how dark energies can get, but it also shaped me to be one of the most loving, unconditional human beings that I've ever could imagine I could be. And what I mean,
What is something that you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
hmm. What happened to me as a child, man? Like what happened to me as a child shaped the way that I view the world in the beginning from a negative sense and how dark energies can get, but it also shaped me to be one of the most loving, unconditional human beings that I've ever could imagine I could be. And what I mean by that is there is darkness that exists within this world. Um, and I, being a drug addict and being in crack houses, I've seen the low of low, and that shaped me as a human to know how dark things can get. But I noticed that every single time I walk into a dark room, if I turn on a light switch, darkness cannot exist. So that shaped me as a
Mm,
human to go to the darkest. Because if men are sitting there and you're in the depths right now, maybe you have an anything, porn addiction, alcohol addiction, you feel like you're in the depths. All you have to do is turn on that light. That's all you have to do, and that light is within you. It's not without. It's not this esoteric thing you have to chase. It's in you. And that was it, man. It was maybe I was meant to go through that. I don't know. I've embodied that so that I can continue to push forward. But to know how dark things can get, and to know that when I walk in a dark room, when I turn the light on, all darkness disappears, and to know that that's possible, and that light keeps getting turned on for me. The darker things get, the brighter the light gets. And I'll leave you with this. It's like the slingshot. My coach says it's like a slingshot. The further you're pulled back, men, right now, the further you can ascend. So if you feel like
mm.
you're in the depths of hell right now, guess what? That means you can ascend. It's the hero's journey, like you said. So being able to see how dark things can get and knowing that darkness cannot exist with light, that's what's propelled me as a man.
Yeah. What we
Mhm.
think can be manifested into our lives. I liked your energy. The energy that you bring into the room could simply be what gets you hired for the job that can lead you on the trajectory to making $250,000 a year. I created this, understanding that where you are in life, whether you like it or not, you created that. You were the creator. And what you said earlier, I had to grow up, man. For a lot of guys that are looking for their fuel, they're looking for the motivation, the inspiration to get to that next level. Who is depending on you? Who is around you that needs you to be your best self?
Mhm.
Because that is your fuel right there. Forgive yourself, heal yourself, and it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Anything worth having is going to require that effort that
No.
you're afraid to put in. But I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but it certainly will be worth it. Discipline. Discipline means you are a disciple of something. And what are you disciplined with? What are you a disciple to? Maybe audit that, because
Mm.
it's not a financial problem, it's a priority problem. And if you're looking for freedom, if you're looking to step into your divine masculine and be the best self to support your family, those around you that love you and depend on you, it is on you to take the responsibility for your world, for your life. Manifest the life that you know you deserve. Step into the difficult and be the true man you do believe and you know that you could be. Coach JV, thank you again. To the audience, thank you for making it to the end. As always, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can get a new episode each and every single week. And the best compliment you can give us is by leaving us a rating to let us know how we're doing. Love to see those. So please leave us a rating and share this with somebody you know can get value from it as well. And make sure to reach out to Coach JV if you love what he said on today's episode. Looking forward to next week,
Awesome.
guys. But as we always say at the end,
Thank
everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.